Dinner parties are the most comfortable form of entertaining for me because I get to show off. I think people have always liked to get together and socialise over food, and I think right since the beginning of time, I think cavemen would have all got together around an antelope for a dinner party. And in New Zealand, before there were restaurants, we always had dinner parties. We had invited people round and invited them back. There were progressive dinner parties, there were fondue parties, always a new way to have a great fun gathering over food. A dinner party where all the food came out of tins would be a hell of a lot of fun. And if you're somebody who really doesn't consider themselves a person who cooks, because there are people out there who do that, but they still would have that desire to see all their friends and entertain, and presumably if they don't like cooking, they still eat sometimes. You know, I mean, I've yet to meet a person who doesn't eat. Although I believe there are some sort of very holy people on the top of mountains in India who just breathe. For my dinner party tonight, I'm going to cook a lovely little flounder entree, which I'm very proud of because I think it's probably the only dish I've ever made up myself. I'm going to cook a big rack of beef, a standing rib roast, I think the finest roast there is, with scallop potatoes. And for dessert, there's going to be chocolate mousse set in little coffee cups with some biscuits and some fruit. Delicious. Coming up on the show tonight, we're in Wellington. We're catching a flounder in the harbour and we're cooking it in Petone. We're having a delicious rack of lamb in Kandala, and we're having a spectacular dessert with one of New Zealand's Food Hall of Famers. Flounder, the great New Zealand flatfish. I absolutely adore flatfish as a cook and as a fisherman and sort of general Kiwi sporting guy. So they're triangular looking, not the prettiest things. I'm glad I don't look like a flounder with my eyes kind of sticking out the top of my head, a bit like a frog in that respect. And then they've got their gill all around the side. It looks very uncomfortable being a flounder, but I don't know really what it's like to be a flounder. Spending all your day flapping around in mud doesn't sound like a hell of a lot of fun, waiting for some bugger to come along with a net or a nail on the end of a piece of bamboo and stick it through you. Some people also say that maybe that whole sort of sitting in the mud and flapping around is how we got that word floundering about, but that's absolutely not the case at all. Floundering in that sense comes from a conflation of founder and blunder. You know, it's not flash like orange roughy. It hasn't had the big press of any of those fish. It hasn't been a now fish. It's always been just one of those things that's filling up all these jolly estuaries everywhere. But I think you really should give flounder another go. And before we can cook them, we've got to catch them. Joe Johnson is a floundering expert. He's been pulling them out of Wellington Harbour for over 35 years. Where are we headed to find these fish? Over here?
Yeah, we're going to go on
Nauronga.
No, just about where the service station is there.
At the service station? Let's pick up a packet of chips while we're over there. What's the best time to go floundering?
Winter time's the best month.
Right.
Winter time's better. Summer months, water gets too hot.
Yeah, what's our load like today?
That's an average catch.
Average.
That's not a good catch, but that's a reasonable catch.
So I'm leaving Joe to mend his nets, but he's going to join us for lunch later. John Cosmodakis is a legend on the Wellington seafood scene. For years he's been hardening politicians' arteries from his fish and chip shop across from Parliament. Today he has John's fish shop in Petone and he rates flounder.
For myself, one of the best, because it's no cannibal fish. Very, very clean fish. And I think one of the best in New Zealand waters.
Do you ever deep fry them?
Yep, it's very nice actually if you deep fry too. From the bottom side, you don't have to do nothing because you've got no scales.
Yeah, I've been wasting a lot of time. I always was trying to scale the bottom.
No, the bottom, you've got no scales at all.
No, it isn't, is it?
No.
It's a good, big, fat flounder.
See, half fresh out there, you can't even pull it.
Yeah.
Because slippery.
So it gets a bit easier to skin it when it's a little older?
Older.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt.
I don't think if you like to do your skin like this, eh?
John then washes his fish, seasons it, and puts it on the barbecue. You oil the back of the flounder before you put it on?
Not
or
the
do you
flounder,
oil the grill?
or the grill.
Right.
Oil
okay.
the grill.
And then 10 minutes each side.
Then each side, because those is very fatty.
It's fatty.
Very fatty, big flounders.
It wouldn't have occurred to me to barbecue a flounder, but he definitely was onto something there with his method. And the whole idea of setting up a charcoal barbecue inside a fish shop in itself was something that, wouldn't have crossed my mind. While the flounder cooks, John whips up a sauce of spring onion, parsley, oil and lemon. Oh, that's awfully good. Smoky from that charcoal. The flounder was smoky, and it was definitely had that barbecued flavour, and it was wonderful that it was barbecued over charcoal because you wouldn't get that charcoaly, smoky flavour any other way. You'd possibly have to say that it's not the way of keeping the flesh the moistest, but then he had that wonderful dressing. This is bloody good. Bloody excellent flounder. Oh, that sauce is great, wasn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah, the whole combination, lemon, smoky. Never had one barbecued.
Say, yo, ask mate.
Well, this is just the best lunch, love it. Yeah,
Good combination.
that's fantastic. Well, after this fabulous flounder lunch and after the break, we're off to have rake a lamb. So my experience at dinner parties as a boy, they were always set up occasions and there was a great deal of tension surrounding them. There'd be important people coming and you had to be all on your best behaviour. It was the one occasion when real coffee made an appearance too, and there was wine on the table, and that was back in the days when it was only Corbyn's Liebestraum and something else. The Cordon Bleu book always seemed to make an appearance, and I also noticed there were flavours that you didn't get at other times too, because I was always getting my finger into the pan where the beef fillet had been roasted, and they would cut it and it was bloody and there was that blood and browning stuff. It was absolutely delicious. Kandala is one of Wellington's flashiest suburbs littered with grand houses and embassies. The name means resting place of the gods, and let's face it, gods wouldn't rest anywhere they couldn't get a decent dinner. So it's the perfect place to look for dinner party expertise. Local mother of two, Rachel Davidson, doesn't think twice about throwing a dinner party for 20.
I far prefer a dinner party to going out. Far prefer it because you're relaxed, you're not in a noisy environment, and you don't have to drive. Very simple rack of lamb with a sort of an orange and ginger marinade, which is very easy, very quick, and really delicious, and doesn't hide too much of the lamb flavour as well, which I think is very good.
It is good.
It is good.
If it's got flavour, you might as well taste it.
Exactly, exactly.
Makes sense.
Now, I always take the sinew off my meat because I think it always shrinks it.
For the marinade, Rachel throws in the zest and juice of 2 oranges.
Sort of a dollop of honey.
Is that an imperial or metric dollop?
A bit of both.
She peels and grates a good lump of ginger, adds a tablespoon of oil, lots of cracked pepper and some garlic. Rachel then warms the marinade so it muddles the flavours together, and then she tips it over the meat. The marination is, you marinate it for as long as you've got to marinate it.
Exactly. I don't put it back in the fridge, I leave it at room temperature.
So when she's marinated it for anywhere between 10 minutes and 2 days, she sears the lamb in the frying pan. No, I wouldn't do much more.
No.
Yeah, because you're not really cooking, you're just
you're
colouring.
not. You're just colouring, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you have to turn it off. Great minds think alike.
I'm sorry, I'm fiddle.
It's all right. Now, right.
We could repaint while we're here. When it's seared, the lamb goes into a moderate oven for 10 minutes.
I just throw a tea towel over it while I'm getting everything, like the potatoes and everything else done.
Fair.
But it's great because it means your meat's done. It's getting ready to, put its lipstick on, and you can do everything else and get everything else ready, and your meat's not cold, it's just rested.
That's right. Oh, it's very forgiving, the resting process. I often take one myself about that stage. Just a quiet whiskey out the back. Oh, right. Rachel was wonderful in that with 2 young children, you'd sort of think that maybe dinner party entertaining was going to be difficult, but she was never going to let that get in the way of her entertaining on quite a grand scale. I mean, she was talking of having had dinner parties of 20, 25 people in there, which is no small undertaking. And, she had an indomitable dinner party spirit that wasn't going to be crushed by anything, and she was out to entertain. Oh, it's good, isn't it?
Very.
It's very good. You know, it's tender, juicy, well-cooked lamb. You can't beat it. Excellent. I really think that lamb and potato gratin is sort of one of God's greatest creations on earth. You know? That's right, he could have rested just after doing that, you know. Plough through this and then we're off to do some pudding. So you're at your dinner party and you've been sitting there all night long soaking up wine, soaking up rich food, soaking up the conversation of your mates, and you're getting a bit tired towards the end of the night. You need a couple of things to perk you up, and one of them is going to be a great cup of coffee and the other thing is a big hit of sugar. So the perfect way to end any dinner party is sweet and coffee. So where do we look for something like that and somebody who can show us? Well, in Wellington there's really nowhere to look but perhaps one of Wellington's finest old school chefs. Des Britton, television cooking show veteran and a man with an eye for a flash pudding.
Superb. Baked Alaska. Well, it's as corny as 101 years old foot, really, but I mean, everyone used to have them when they were married, engaged, or celebrating a divorce or whatever. Bring on the bomb. And this flames, and everyone likes flames.
Is that one of George Bush's latest?
Now, don't you start your comedy act on
Well,
there.
that's right, sort of
This is more not a bomb, but a grenade, because we're making two small ones.
Right.
You know, in the old recipe, it was a huge mountain of things, but we've modified it a bit and made it a couple of little grenades.
Des takes supermarket Madeira cake, soaks it in frangelico, and adds a glump of brandy-enhanced jam.
All that remains to be done is put the hokey pokey ice cream on the top, which we won't do just yet because we've got to whip the egg whites.
Beat together 4 egg whites, gradually adding half a cup of sugar. Put it in a piping bag, and then place your prepared lump of ice cream on top of the sponge and jam.
You want me to do it, or are you feeling artistic?
No.
All right. What we're trying to do here is seal the whole thing so the heat doesn't get at it and just sets the meringue on top so that when you have it, the ice cream is still, I mean, you want some little, let's put some little
You want a bit of...
doomy-dangs, you know, little hangovers here that make it look pretty. The wonderful thing about this dessert is that you can make it the day before, put it in the deep freeze, you just pull it out and pop it onto the hottish oven.
Why the deep freeze? You don't just want to put it in the oven straight away?
No, because we want the whole thing to compound together. If we put that straight in the oven now, the ice cream would melt too quickly.
Right. Being the experienced TV chef that he is, Des had prepared 2 bomb Alaskas earlier.
What does it look like?
They look one of Madonna's bras.
I don't know that Madonna would be very flattered. We'll put her in the oven. We'll put her in the oven.
So, if I've got you right, this is as hot as your oven can go.
Yep, meltdown. If the oven melts, I need a new one.
He cranks his oven up to the highest possible heat, then cooks them for 3 minutes. Then he adds some extra heat, soprano style, and then drizzles it with chocolate sauce. Des flames some heated brandy and tips it over the top.
Here we have the bomb baked Alaska.
Oh, it's just wonderful. This is flashy.
Well, as I said, it's a bit corny, but it's good when it's done properly.
Dimming the lights at the table and having foot-high flames of burning alcohol is a must at any good dinner party. I mean, maybe you need to have a fire blanket handy or, you know, a fire extinguisher, but it really does add a lot to an evening. So we've got this absolutely delicious marshmallowy, just crisp on the outside meringue. There's hokey pokey ice cream, the jam, the liquor-soaked sponge, and it all just goes together. It's a symphony.
You got to get some ice cream. Got some of that hokey pokey.
Oh, I've got a hokey.
Huh? No, buy pokey.
That's right. There's lots of hokies pokied in that ice cream. It's very good. This is, look, I always say it's very good, but this is very good. You guys have got to make this. You've got to put down what you're doing. Actually, no, wait till the end of the show. Put down what you're doing, rush down to the supermarket and make this. Another tough day at the office for me. After the break, you'll be in my Kiwi Kitchen. Well, welcome back to Kiwi Kitchen. Now it's my turn to have a go. I'm going to make a fabulous dinner party, just how I'd serve it. I'm going to roast a great big slab of beef on the bone, tender and delicious, with some scallop potatoes, and I want to show you how to make those because I think that's sort of the building block of any good dinner party is a great potato dish. There's going to be some chocolate mousse set in a cup for dessert, but first of all I'm going to make a flounder dish, and this is going to be an elegant flounder dish. It may sound like a contradiction in terms, coming from me especially. We've got the flounder fillets. Next thing we're going to do is make a little fish mousse to press onto the fillets.
My mousse is made with monkfish, which I cut up and make a paste of in the food processor with a few tablespoons of cream, a couple of tablespoons of brandy and some seasoning.
Just take a handful of mousse and press it in to the flesh side, not the skin side, the flesh side, get that right. And then take some breadcrumbs and press those in to the mousse, and then set it on the tray, ready to cook later. Well, they're all done. I'm going to put them in the fridge till I need to cook them. So now I'm going to make my scallop potatoes.
Take a big dish and butter it. Add a clove of garlic, then slice your potatoes and onions in the food processor.
I'll show you why I think it's such a good idea to use the food processor. I mean, quite apart from the fact that they're all evenly and very thinly sliced, if you look closely, you'll see there's all sorts of little mashed up bits of potato, bashed to pieces stuff in there, starchy potato bits, and they take the place of flour. A lot of recipes you have to sprinkle it and layer it with flour and all sorts of things, but that ends up tasting a bit like wallpaper paste. Press it in, you've got to... It pays at all times to remove all pieces of the food processor from the dish. You've got to season it.
Mix it in, flatten it, and add equal measures of cream and milk.
Now, you don't want to drench it in it. If you look closely, you'll see that when I press it down, the milk comes to the top, but when I don't press it down, you can't see the milk. That's what you want.
The cream and milk will curdle as it cooks, and that will make it cheesy and delicious.
So into the oven, that's going to be 180 degrees, and this is going to take an hour and a half or 2 hours. Well, that's timely. Tea towel of the week. Surprise, surprise, it's Wellington, and look at the pretty cable car up there. Lovely picture of the harbour, seat of power. Well, there you go. Anyway, let's get on to the centrepiece of it all, the big I've got goosebumps on the back of my neck just talking about it. This piece of meat is so beautiful. Just you wait and see. Here it is. That's a fine looking slab of beef, isn't it? All we need to do to get this in the oven, season the outside of it and rub the ends here, the cut ends of it, with a little bit of butter. Now season the outside of it. There's a lot of theories about how to cook this, but there's a simple rule I think you should follow, and it's just half an hour per kilo at 180 degrees, and you should get something out that's delicious, tender and medium rare. So into the oven it goes. And then we're going to make a fabulous triple chocolate mousse.
I'm using dark chocolate, white chocolate and milk chocolate.
Because that means there's 3 and we can call it triple. Fair enough?
Separate 2 eggs and beat the yolks with 2 tablespoons of sugar. Bring to the boil 250 ml of cream. Tip the cream in with the yolks and the sugar, and then put it back on the heat for a moment. Throw in 300 grams of chocolate, melt it, and add some vanilla. Then beat up the egg whites.
The trick with folding it in is just to loosen up the dense mixture, in this case, of course, being the chocolate, with a little bit of the white to start with, just to get it unsort of bound and a little looser, and then dump the whole lot in with the rest of the whites. Pop them in the fridge and they'll set. Then all you're going to have to do is pop them on a saucer with a teaspoon and you've got a absolutely wonderfully rich chocolate dessert. Right, well the meat should be ready now. And by gum it is. Look at that. It's mine, all mine. Right, so the cooking time's finished, but the laws of thermodynamics have it that the temperature has to kind of equalise in it, so it's still going to keep cooking in the middle for about another half an hour or so, so you need to rest it for that half an hour. I'm going to throw a tea towel over or something, leave it sitting there, get on with making the flounder.
Take the flounder and flour the skin side, then fry each one of them skin side down in butter till crispy.
On a good high heat, plenty of sizzle.
When crispy, place a slice of lemon or lime on each one, then take a preheated roasting dish and place it over the element. Add a big dollop of butter and some oil and then put in the flounder, mousse and breadcrumb side down.
Into the 200-degree oven, about 8 or 10 minutes, and they'll be cooked. Well, here it is. Here's my dinner party, and here's my fabulous little flounder entree. I think it's very wise to just do these plated entrees rather than main courses because you've sort of not probably got as much liquor in you at the start of the meal.
It's on a winey, buttery sauce.
Too delicious for words, and that's not just because I made it up. Well, I did make it up, don't forget that. And then there's the beef. Look at that, beautiful, rare to medium rare. And on it, we've got a classic kiwi mushroom sauce. Look how black that is. They're almost like field mushrooms. Then we've got some leek and blue cheese crumble and those scallop potatoes, which are just magnificent. And then some green beans, because I felt I had to have something on the plate that didn't have cream on it. Something dessert down this end of the table. We've got those little cups full of chocolate mousse. They're just so rich.
I'm serving it with coffee, fresh oranges and one of the best biscuits on the planet, the Griffin's Crispy Biscuit.
I hope you can be inspired to whip out and knock yourself up at a dinner party and invite your friends round and have a good time. And as I say, whatever you serve, if you're giving it with all the love in your heart, then it's going to taste better than anything that any fancy chef in a restaurant could knock up. So get out there, invite them round, have a glass of wine and have a good time. And speaking of good times, there's a whole bunch of the crew around here who are desperate to get in and get eating. So thank you very much for coming to my Kiwi Kitchen, and we'll see you again soon. Come on, everybody. You can eat something now. Tuck into it.